In 2002, Joel Rosenberg's novels burst into the political thriller scene. 2 decades and more than a dozen novels later, Rosenberg is still entertaining readers with his newest release, The Libyan Diversion.
New York Times bestselling author Joel Rosenberg's latest novel follows the adventures of CIA operative Marcus Ryker as he hunts down one of the world's most dangerous terrorist groups. The stakes are enormous as the head of the terror group, the Libyan, plans the most daring attack on U.S. soil since 9/11. While Rosenberg's thrillers entertain, they also examine and raise critical questions about U.S. national security. In this book, that includes America's porous southern border, the growing alliance involving Russia, Iran, and Turkey, and American enemies expanding weapons of mass destruction. Rosenberg takes his readers on a literary roller coaster ride, one he hopes and prays will never come to pass.
Well, Joel Rosenberg joins us now from our Jerusalem bureau. Joel, I got to congratulate you. Literally, this book is ripped from the headlines today. You've named your chief villain Nakba, and that went off this week. And then you also say that our southern border is wide open to terrorism. And then just yesterday, they caught an Afghan national on the terrorist list trying to cross our southern border. So tell us, what inspired the storyline?
Well, Gordon, great to be with you from Jerusalem, although I love my almost annual pilgrimage to Virginia Beach to be with you or your dad. I've been on the 700 Club for all but my first novel, and I'm just so grateful to you guys. Look, you know, when I wrote The Libyan Diversion, I had never written a political thriller that involved terrorists coming in through the chaotic, unsecured southern border of the United States, northern border too, and much less bringing dirty nuclear bombs. That was new for me, but the more I looked at what was happening on the U.S.-Mexican border, I thought, this is insane what's going on. The United States Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, commands, instructs the President of the United States and the federal government to protect the states and the American people from invasion. That's the word. And the more I looked at it, I realized there is an invasion. 5.7 million illegal people have come illegally into the United States through Mexico. Several million have been caught, but several million have gotten away. And the question, as you note, an Afghan national on the terror list just this weekend or the last few days, 83 so far this year. 98 people on the terror watch list last year were captured trying to get into the United States through Mexico. But how many have we not stopped? And what are they planning? That's the fictional premise of The Libyan Diversion. But I got to tell you, it feels scarier than living in Israel. And we've just had 1,400 rockets shot at us in the last few days.
Well, what do you think is the solution here on our southern border? It just doesn't seem to ever come to any kind of agreement between Democrat and Republican. Will it actually take some incident to say, okay, can we please unite and solve the problem?
Well, I hope not, Gordon, because, after 9/11, everybody said, wow, we never imagined radical Islamist terrorists hijacking planes and turning them into missiles. So how would we have defended ourselves against that? Now, imagine a scenario in which you had a 9/11-esque event or something worse. In the Libyan Diversion, it's much, much worse than 9/11. But let's just imagine something as bad as 9/11. And let's imagine that the people that are responsible, that the FBI and the CIA realized that they got into the United States through that southern border, or through Canada, but mainly through the southern border with Mexico. There will be no forgiveness for a president, a party that allowed that to happen. We all know what's happening. And I got to say, it's a dereliction of duty of the President of the United States not to pay attention and enforce the U.S. Constitution when it says you've got to protect the country from invasion. If 5.7 million people, including terrorists, flooding into the country is not an invasion, I know it's not the normal type of invasion, but drugs are coming in. Fentanyl is 50 times more deadly than heroin. Right? And it's flowing into the United States. You got drug cartels, you got human trafficking, and you got terrorism. The Libyan Diversion imagines the worst case scenario. What if Washington isn't serious about this? But I got to say, for all the, and not everybody is a big fan of Donald Trump because of certain things he said or did, but look what he did on that border. He was serious about building a wall, the Remain in Mexico policy, and increasing the budget and flooding Border Patrol officers to that border, strengthening the governors. Biden has just done the exact opposite, and it's not surprising that you've got almost 6 million people, including terrorists. So Washington has to change, and if it can't be bipartisan, then one party has to make that change because it's just too dangerous. And I just pray, Gordon, that the Libyan diversion premise never comes true, but it really, really could.
Well, do you think we're actually having a political diversion, that our attention is more focused on our fights between ourselves? And is that diverting our attention from the real problems in the world?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, the story that you guys led with was a fake FBI investigation. I mean, the investigation was real, and it cost a lot of money. It cost a lot of time. But what did it prove? It proved that it was the Democrats, the Clinton team, that was actually luring the FBI in to investigate the sitting president of the United States, President Trump, and his team, to do what? To discredit them and to distract them, to divert them from the issues of the country in the earliest months of a very sensitive administration. And yet, to President Trump, Vice President Pence, CIA then Director Pompeo, and others, they did a pretty good job staying laser focused on trying to and protecting the U.S. border in the South, right? The number of people flowing into the country dropped dramatically in the Trump years. So, you can have all kinds of criticisms from every direction, but Trump was serious about the border. He was serious about protecting Israel. He was serious about making peace in the Middle East between Israel and the Arabs. He got a lot done. I'm not trying to give a whole list, and I'm not endorsing. I'm just saying that the contrast between the way the Republicans under President Trump and Pence and Pompeo handled things versus Biden and his team, it's night and day. It's not even close. And I would like to think that the Libyan diversion is fun entertainment, that it's a type of thrill ride that just, make a great novel, make a great movie, make a great Netflix series or whatever. But in some ways, it's also a warning that if Washington continues to let itself get distracted by non-issues and doesn't focus on the drugs, the human trafficking, the terrorism on that southern border, there's a disaster ahead of us.
Well, let's talk about the disaster. Let's talk about the worst case scenario in your book. That is a dirty nuclear weapon being smuggled into the U.S. It's leaving radioactive traces in a tunnel between Mexico and the U.S. But do you see that as a possibility? Could a dirty bomb somehow end up in our country and actually go off?
Well, more and more, I think that the answer to that is yes, Gordon, and that's what terrifies me. I had this conversation 2 years ago with then former CIA director and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He's a friend. He's been a reader and a fan of my novels over the years, and I'm grateful for that. I was interviewing him at a Museum of the Bible event in D.C. on the weekend of 9/11 in 2021, the 20th anniversary. Long story short, I asked him, what am I not asking you? What is keeping you up at night, Mr. Secretary, that worries you about U.S. national security that maybe I haven't asked you? I've asked you about China and Iran and Russia and all these issues. He said ungoverned spaces in northern Mexico. Essentially, he said that the Mexican government has effectively surrendered large swaths of territory to drug runners, drug cartels, human trafficking organizations, organized crime syndicates, and so forth. And he goes, because of that, and because of the Biden administration not taking it seriously, you can get almost anybody and anything across that border if you try hard enough, and sometimes you don't even have to try hard. That he didn't mention terrorism specifically, and he didn't mention nuclear bombs in my conversation with him. But as I extrapolated forward, I realized of all the changes that have been made over the last 20 years after 9/11 in Homeland Security, right? And these have been good changes, but they've been expensive and they've been hard. Terrorists it's not easy to fake a passport now and fly into America. And it's not easy. You can't essentially break into the cockpit and take over a 777 and turn it into a missile, because of those doors and the locks and the air marshals on the planes. But you can. So how would you get in if you wanted to create 9/11 again, or something much, much worse, like in the Libyan Diversion? How would you do it? You can't do it by plane. You can't do it by cruise ship. You can't do it by container ship. And you can't just drive this stuff across the border in a car and a truck, because all of it has high sensors, and we're watching for that. So what do? Well, you just walk across the border. This is insane. I mean, this is rising close to impeachment level conduct. I mean, Trump was impeached on 2 ridiculous charges. But if Biden is going to not keep the United States Constitution to protect us, United States, American people and states from invasion, the Republicans will have to consider, does that rise to an impeachable offense? Because how else can you rattle the Biden administration to say this is deadly serious? It's not like an issue where, it's not a budget argument saying, I don't want to spend so much here. I'd rather spend it here. I don't want to cut taxes that much. Their side wants to raise it. That's a normal debate. Protecting the border from terrorists, drug runners, and human traffickers abusing and taking advantage of little girls and vulnerable women and little boys. This is horrific. It's almost unimaginable that you have a president or a party that thinks this is okay. What in the world is happening in America? I got to say, all the challenges we have here living in Israel, border security is not the issue. We take border security very, very seriously. We built a wall, and we've got missile defense systems, and it works. It's not perfect, but Israelis take border security very, very seriously. Biden does not. And I think that is leading to a potential disaster.
Well, Joel, thank you. Thank you for the book, and thank you for immigrating to Israel. I like to remind Christians that if you read the Bible, you'll figure out Israel is the safest place to be in the last days. So you've chosen wisely.
Thank you very much, Gordon. Bless you.
All right. Joel's latest book is called The Libyan Diversion. You can find it wherever books are sold.